What's happening, driver? Man, we got a whole lot of free game in this episode. Listen, I'm about to lace you up on how to rent a chassis. All that and more. Stay tuned. For those who are new to the container or drayage or intermodal game, before, I think it was about 2008, I got to check on that to make sure, because I like to be specific. I like to give you nothing but the facts, driver, you understand? So before 2008, what was going on was, in the drayage industry, the SSL, which is the shipping lines, would provide the trailer. So basically, you would go to the port to pick up a container on wheels, meaning this container already was on a chassis. All you had to do was pull up, pick it up, deliver, come back, drop off, and go. It was basically a power only type deal with pulling chassis. Around about 2009, things started changing where they required the carrier to actually have their own chassis, which brings us to this video. How do you rent a chassis? Now, some people might ask, what is a chassis? A chassis is a steel frame with tires used to transport shipping containers. So, driver, it's 3 ways to lease a chassis. The first way is something called a chassis pool. Your second way is called a term lease. And your third way is called a daily rental. 3 ways. So a chassis pool is a depot, or some of them are located at the actual port. And what you do is you drive in, you check your chassis out, you do your pre-trip inspection, check your tires, check your lights, make sure the chassis is roadworthy. You take this chassis and you're subjected to the daily rate of that particular chassis pool company. So from the time you outgate this chassis to the time you ingate this chassis, there's fees that apply, and that's called a chassis pool. Now, the next way you could get a chassis is to do the term lease. Now, the term lease has its perks. All of them have pros and cons. The term lease is a good option if you have the business coming in. This way, with the term lease, you pick your chassis. You know your chassis is roadworthy. You know what the tires are good. You know that this chassis is reliable. So you'll have less headaches out of a term lease. Also, you won't be subject to the daily rate increases. Some places it fluctuates. Some days it might be $25 a day. Some days it might drop down to $16. But when you do a term lease, you lock that rate in. Let's say it's $6 a day. You lock that rate in for that term, which let's say is 6 months. So you're paying $6 a day for 6 months. You don't have to worry about price fluctuating. You don't have to worry about checking the chassis and hoping to get there early to get yourself a good chassis. You know that the chassis you have is good. It's on point. It's ready to roll, which allows a driver to get to that yard, do a pre-trip inspection, and get on over to the port and pick up that container and make them deliveries. So your second option is a term lease. Now, your daily rental would be, you make a phone call. Hey, I need to pick up a 40-foot chassis. I got a I'm going to need it for 3 days. Let's say the customer wants you to drop it off. It takes 2 days to unload or 2 days to load. Then you come pick it back up. Then you'll need that chassis for 3 days. You'll pay three days of rental at the rate that that particular company wants for their chassis. And that's called your daily rental option. So now, there are pros and cons to each method. For, let's say, chassis pool. The pros of a chassis pool will be the chassis pool company has to do the maintenance. Let's say you come out, one of the lights are messed up, they have to fix it. Let's say you come out, you drop off, you get a flat tire, they have to send somebody out there to fix it. That was a pro. Now, a con would be the quality of chassis is not as good as a Lease, and the ones that have the newer chassis will be the daily rental options. They have the 23s and the 24s and all that. But anyway, the Lease option. The pro of the Lease option is you get that same rate for the duration of the lease. That's the pro, and the con would be that you are liable for that chassis. Flat tires, it's on you. Greasing, that's on you. Making sure that air leaks, brake chambers, everything is on you. That's basically your chassis. You're leasing it just like when you lease a vehicle. Now, for the daily rental option, the pro would be you're dealing with chassis that are 5 years or newer. In some cases, 3 years and newer. So it's a very high quality chassis, brand new, very reliable. Those are the pros. And the cons of it would be that you're also liable for the chassis. Any damages, lights, tires, anything that needs to be repaired on that chassis, you're liable for to fix and make those repairs. Now, we're going to go over a couple of companies. I'm not going to tell you all the companies. Do some research. Basically, I'm just letting you know the ways that you can go about renting chassis. The 3 ways. Do your research. Find out more companies. I'll give you a few of them just to start. First one I could say is Flexi-Van. Second one is DCLI. Next one is Extra Lease. Extra Lease does they do carry chassis. DCLI would be the best bet. I mean, that's who I would roll with. That's who I've done business with before. I also did business with Flexi-Van. I would go with Flexi-Van. They're reputable companies. They've been in the business for extended amount of time, and the rates are pretty good. You have a place called King Chassis. That's another spot. Let me see. Sorry, not King Chassis. It's Chassis King. Chassis King is a spot. KR Chassis Leasing. You have Milecorp. Premier Trailer Leasing. Last one I have is Tropical Trailer Leasing. Now, for people who have their own companies, LLCs or S Corps, whatever, you want to establish yourself. You want to have good credit. So, free game. What you want to do is you want to get your company, you set your company up, you structure it as LLC or you structure it as an S Corp. And then what you do, you go over to the Dun and Bradstreet, or sorry, you go over to the IRS website, you get yourself your EIN. Once you get your EIN, you go to Dun and Bradstreet, you get your DUNS number. Now, what you want to do, you want to go to a company like Bags and Bowls, or just Google search net 30 companies. I think it's a few trucking net 30 companies that have certain equipment that you might need for your trucking business. And what you do is you order about $100 or $200 worth of equipment. You have 30 days to pay. Try to pay it off in 20 days. You pay it off in full in 20 days. You do 7 different transactions like that. That'll give you 7 positive trade lines. And then what you want to do, you want to move over to fuel cards. Then you want to move over to, before fuel cards, you want to go to store cards. Like what you might want is, you might want a Home Depot business account. You might also want a Lowe's business account. You would also want Office Depot. Then with those accounts set, you get yourself about 13 accounts all together. Once you have, 11 accounts all together, then what you want to do, you want to go over and start doing your fuel cards. Your fuel cards, once you start getting your fuel cards, now you're ready to go in and do your chassis leasing. Some places would use you as a guarantor. I stay away from places like that. Reason being, I don't want to be a guarantor on a chassis when I have a company that's established with the credit to get that chassis lease done for me. So I stay away from personal guarantors. Even with my business credit cards, I am not a personal guarantor on there. It's a business credit card. The business is liable, not me. So at the end of the day, these are the steps that you need in order to rent a chassis or lease a chassis. Some leasing companies have an option to do a purchase. You do a lease to own. The best one I would do if I'm doing a term lease, I would do a 2040 city combo chassis, because that way you could pull 20s and you could also pull 40s. This particular chassis could hold 2 20s and it could hold 1 40. A tri-axle version would be good if you're thinking about doing a lot of heavy pulling. You also charge a fee for that. You get a blanket permit for your state, and then you charge a fee, which sometimes is $150, $175, $200, depending on mileage. So that concludes this episode on how to rent a chassis. Hey, guess what? Now it's my turn, driver. It's my turn. Now I need you to do 3 things for me, driver. I need you to keep that left door shut, keep them wheels spinning, and let's keep America moving, driver. Gio.